This is Baton Rouge Labor Radio, and we're broadcast on WHYR 96.9 FM, Baton Rouge Community Radio. And we're sitting here with Ms. Julie Cherry, Secretary Treasurer of the Louisiana AFL-CIO, and we're at the 58th Louisiana AFL-CIO Convention. Neil Paul Miller's here, and good morning, Ms. Cherry.
Good morning to you.
And how are things going? Mary Landrieu's talking right now.
She is.
And did you catch a little bit of that?
I did catch a little bit of that. Mary was giving us some valuable information about things going on at the national level, and the fight, I guess, the job the country needs to do to sort of dig itself out of a hole, but how do we do that without taking it out of the hides of working people?
So give us the cliff notes on that. What was she talking about?
Well, Mary has supported efforts, to build coalitions and ask more of those earning above $400,000, which we think is right, and not reduce benefits to some of our neediest citizens, those who receive Social Security or who are, already retired, because they should definitely not be asked to pay more at this point in their lives.
Neil?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to, thank Julie for coming on.
Sure.
The second thing, Julie, let's get a little background on how you came up through the rank and file, and you were a teacher, correct?
I was a classroom teacher here in East Baton Rouge Parish.
One of those?
I was one of those
I'm married
evil
to one,
people
too.
everybody is shooting at nowadays, right? And throughout the course of my employment, I got involved in the union.
How many pencils did you steal when you were a teacher?
When I was a teacher, you mean beg and borrow so that my students could
No.
get supplies?
Steal! What school did you teach at?
Oh, I started off teaching at Banks Elementary and Northdale Alternative. Northdale is a high school, an alternative high school that has been open for many years to serve at-risk students, those who are at risk of dropping out, maybe young women who have had children, maybe people who have gotten into the juvenile justice system.
Are they using the Superdome for that program now?
Oh, no, they aren't, and that was not very kind. It's a very small school. And Banks Elementary is a very, I don't think it's even open, it was a very impoverished elementary school.
Banks.
Yeah.
At the time. The last school I taught at was Capitol High School before the state took it over, and also a very economically depressed area.
What year did you teach there?
In Capitol in 2004, the spring
Oh,
semester.
okay.
And then you moved.
I
on to
went to
the-
Capitol.
Yeah, then I came to the
AFL.
AFL in
We
August.
I went to Capitol in the late 60s.
Really?
The only white boy there.
Yeah.
Yep. I think there were one or two when I was teaching there too. That's the way the school system
That's
works.
the way it's set up.
Yep.
We had Sybil on earlier, and we were asking her about, when she was coming up through the rank and file, and then her involvement with the Capitol and with some of the legislation going on. I'd like to get your feel on that. I mean, I know y'all meet in the morning, and and Sybil was kind enough to let us know that it's not just a union fight. It's the working people. They represent the poor, the underprivileged. Y'all do a lot of good things, and I know in the past few years with this administration we have now, what do you see y'all's biggest fight is now with this governor we have now compared to past people?
This administration is keeping us plenty busy, as you know.
Sybil Holt, Julie's got to go. Thank you for your time.
She'll be back.
I will be back.
Okay, we'll be here. Okay, we're back.
Okay, I'm
We're
sorry.
back with Julie Cherry. She was called out very shortly by President Louis Wren, Louisiana AFL-CIO president. Where were you at, Neil?
Oh, we were just talking about the upcoming. I tell you what, I do remember, we were talking about the administration, the governor we have now, and I wanted to know what difference do you see in the legislation now with this governor compared to previous administration? Although you've had an uphill battle ever since you did.
Yeah, well,
AFL-CIO.
Kathleen Blanco was governor when I got to the AFL-CIO, and of course,
former teacher.
we're going into the 6th session of Bobby Jindal. Unlike any previous politician I can think of, there is much less of an effort to engage stakeholders in the conversation. By that I mean to talk to the people that anything he proposes is going to affect for best, well, like, what are his goals? What is he trying to accomplish? How can we help him accomplish that without it taking it out of our hides and that sort of thing? I think he has really his own agenda. It's a very part of it's very business friendly. You've seen an unprecedented effort to privatize public services, and that, in my opinion, is about follow the money. That is to reward people who have supported him, to allow private enterprise to get their hands into the public coffers to provide services that the government.
Kind of like the health care that they privatized, and it was going to be X amount of dollars, and come to find out they added a couple million to that.
The contract with the Office of Group Benefits, which,
Yeah.
by the way, oh boy, you picked a good one. The Office of Group Benefits, when Mr. Teague arrived, I think had about a $50 million deficit. And by the time Bobby Jindal fired him, it had a $500 million surplus. Was not a poorly managed office. Had an average 3-day claim turnaround time. Can you name one private insurer that does that?
No.
Okay. So it obviously was not about the services that are provided.
Well, and then in yesterday's paper, they had a deal on there about the general administration with this tax proposal that he's bringing up. He's wanting to bring Fortune 500 companies in here. Out of the Fortune 500 companies, 177, and you can punch that up, Mike, 177 are located in states that are in the bottom 10 of business-friendly states. Did you read that yesterday?
No, but I'm reading something on Tom Aswell's blog that he posted this weekend, and I was going to get Julie Cherry to comment on that. Letter to U.S. Attorney. This is from Tom Aswell's.
I read
Did
it.
you read that?
I read it.
And just for our listeners, letter to U.S. Attorney, Louisiana voice claims continuing pattern of RFP bid rigging, vendor favoritism at OGB DOA.
According to that article,
What is OGB?
the OGB is the Office of Group Benefits, and DOA is the Division of Administration. That actually is the part of government that makes sure everything, it administers the rest of the offices and such. And Office of Group Benefits is that has overseen the health insurance benefits for state employees. And according to that article, if I can sort of summarize it, there has been a pattern of allowing vendors to help write requests for proposals in order to give them a definite advantage.
Make
in
it
the bid
friendly for
process.
them, right?
That's correct.
Is that what
so
you're
that
saying?
no one else could compete, and he is asking for, or actually the letter came from an anonymous person to the Attorney General's office,
Right.
asking for an investigation into that because that is completely unethical. And of course,
So has the Attorney General ruled on anything? Or
No.
I
it's
think
in
the letter is
process?
recent, so
Okay.
it's
Well, I mean, this broke this weekend.
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
So we're not anywhere yet as far as that goes. But the article alleges, I think, that this is not the only time and place that this has happened in this administration. Our governor that came in touting transparency and ethics, and we had a special session when his first session here to revamp all of our ethics laws, and he kind of made sure through the process that they applied to everybody but the governor's office.
Yeah.
Which we have a little bit of a problem with.
Yeah, oh, and you're absolutely right, it's everybody but him. And again, I mean, and if you look at how much time he spent out of the state of Louisiana, trying to look for his national political career, which I think has spiraled pretty quickly with some of the things he said about the his own party, but that's another subject. But back on the session, I mean, again, have you ever seen? I know you've been 6 years. You said how long?
I've been there 9.
9 years.
Yes.
Have you ever seen the administration attack the working people more than this administration has?
Never. It's unprecedented, and it's happening all over the country. Louisiana is not unique in that regard. A lot of this is spurred by a national group called the American Legislative Exchange Council, which is a thinly veiled group.
Funded
in
by
which Koch
Koch
brothers and others.
Yeah.
That's correct. And you had begun the conversation talking about how the AFL-CIO really doesn't work just for unions. We work for all working people. Some of our speakers this morning, our pastor who gave the invocation and William Daniel from the city, talked about our mission statement, saying that we're here to bring better working conditions for our members, which everybody else ends up benefiting from, by the way, and social and economic justice in the workplace, and social justice to our communities and nations. And social justice means we do look out for our brothers and sisters. You know, we're never going to live in a world where there are not some unequal advantages. There are always going to be some folks who have more and some folks who have less. But it is our obligation, we think, part of our mission, to make sure that those who have less still have opportunity. And that's what this country stands for. So, some of the things that we do, labor unions are not the only workers who have a 40-hour work week. Union members are not the only people who get paid overtime. Union members are not the only people who have employer-sponsored health care, although that number's getting smaller. It should improve under the Affordable Care Act, but it has been getting smaller. Union members are not the only people who have benefited from defined benefit pensions, which is under attack. Even Social Security, we had a
What
hand
about
in.
the OSHA? And I mean, you can sit there.
Safety regulations that, I should have as safe a workplace as possible, and if I am injured on the job, I should be taken care of.
Well, and people fail to forget that safety is not just out on a construction job.
No, absolutely.
If you look at when you have, and Sybil was talking about when she was working for AT&T and the switchboards and all this, but if you look back at the asbestos that these people, I mean, they're sitting in there and they bring a contractor in there and they take a hammer and start busting the sheetrock while these workers are in there working. Hey, there's asbestos floating around in the air and things like that. I mean, that's another thing that y'all proudly.
Right. That if you're exposed, and it should not be because of the way a lot of folks work from job to job to job, especially in what we do, that it shouldn't be the burden of the worker to have to show the first exposure or every exposure. Some of these guys, your guys, how many places will they work over the span of their career?
A lot.
And for a lot of different contractors.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know some folks who have every pay stub they've ever gotten, but most of us are not like that.
No, I'm not. That's
We're
for sure.
just not like that. There is a lot to this fight that is outside the workplace, as you say.
And it's, and for the listeners, I mean, like with the asbestos, some people look at it at two different ways, that they're just trying to get something for nothing. No, that's the furthest from the truth. The truth of the matter is these companies knowingly were having our members, your people, everybody else exposed to this asbestos, knowingly had them doing this and knew what the results were.
Well, for a long time before it became public.
Yeah.
And that amazed me. I saw a presentation about that last year, and my mouth was hanging on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in this for a while, and I'm particularly active in workers' compensation that area of the legislature. So it amazed me. They knew, they were writing secret letters back and forth among the management about how do we make sure we don't get this out and kind of,
brush it up
hide
in the
these
carpet.
reports under the rug and that kind of thing. And then it wasn't just the workers that were exposed. The wives that washed their clothing and stuff were exposed. And as you said before, we had asbestos abatement and containment, and you had to, every time they had to knock out a wall or
Julie,
whatever.
we're talking about
people were
asbestos.
exposed.
I mean, there's other things that are out there that hazardous chemicals, the same thing that you brought home, and the wife or you or whoever threw it in the washing machine along with your kids' clothes.
Right.
And so if you look at that, it's really scary.
And you're talking about diseases that take years to
develop.
manifest.
Yes.
The kid maybe grows up, goes to college, doesn't have anything to do with any job ever like that, and 40 or 50 years old ends up with signs of mesothelioma or one of those other just devastating diseases because of exposure that these companies knew the hazard and kept.
All right, and I want to get back, and Mike, I mean, you can chime in. Mike's over, he finally found the access to the internet.
Yeah.
But I want to get back on to when, because I'm married to a school teacher, so it's a little special thing with me when I'm sitting with somebody else that has that background, because I rib her all the time. She teaches second grade, been teaching second grade. What's the thing that you see different with the education system, good or bad or indifferent, on what they're doing with the voucher systems and some of the things that they got going on right now? What's your opinion about all that?
I think that the voucher proponents have done a good job of being snake oil salesmen. And I don't mean that there aren't some very credible schools that accept those vouchers, but we have convinced parents that they need to have choices in their children's education, which I'm not really against choice, and I think I should, as a parent, I'm obligated to find the best place for my child. Now, if I don't have resources for private school and I'm dependent upon the public school system, how do I pick the best one? We need to bring our parents back into the schools, quite honestly. The way to have control and choice over your public schools is to be active in your child's education. And it's difficult because today, almost every family, it's both parents working. If there are two parents, it's difficult to have the same kind of connections to school that, say, our parents did. And it's complicated by just natural life changes and more things that distract our children and take their time and attention. You no longer have somebody at home that assumes that if you're in trouble at school, you did something wrong and you're in trouble at home too. I've seen parents, now I've been out of the classroom almost 10 years. 2004 was the last year that I taught. And parents will come up to school and say that, the teacher's wrong, the kid didn't do anything, and sometimes they might be right. Let's face that. We're not all perfect teachers either, but the thing that we most need is for parents to be supportive of the school environment, for there to be some discipline. Discipline's not a dirty word, and a child who arrives at school undisciplined is harder to discipline. If your child is always electronically babysat for whatever, whether it's video games or computers or TVs or DVDs, whatever, and those aren't bad things of and by themselves, but children arrive at school without the same vocabulary, without the same social and personal skills that we need, that are just as important to your future success as what you ultimately learn when you arrive there. So I think there's a societal problem in that we need to find some ways to, I don't think we're going back to traditional families. I don't see it happening in our lifetime, but we need something to bolster whatever family environment that child has. Whatever environment that child has should be supportive of the educational environment. And those should be, we need to bring the community back into our schools.
Well, and I also, like I said, what I see is not just with the voucher system, but this administration. Again, I've been with Karen since 1983. I've never seen the administration attack teachers like this administration. I mean, he is brutal. And some of the things that he's ramrodded through the legislation, you know, I think the judges are overturning some of this stuff.
Oh, yeah, Bobby's 0 for 4 so far.
How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you bring families back into the school? How do you do that?
You know, I don't think we can legislate it. I think it's back to educating our communities. I had a thought about why some of these churches are getting involved in the vouchers, whether or not they're prepared to offer an adequate education, which I won't comment on. And why parents feel comfortable about that is because that is a community that they already belong to, you know. And I think that's why it's been easy for the governor that's one of the reasons it's been easy for the governor to sell this snake oil.
Now,
Because
have they had a study or what kind of information do they have that the kids that are getting vouchers are members of the religion that their kid is going to? Are there any
that's
kind
not
of
where I thought
study?
you were going with that question. No, not that I know of.
Right.
I thought you were going to ask about studies of the effectiveness, and I was going to tell you that's part of why this whole process is flawed, because the schools receiving vouchers are not subject to the same tests and things that the regular
Well,
public schools
most
are.
of
There's
them
no way to compare them.
They're religious schools, most of them, right?
Yes, I would say most of them are.
And like I said, like you said, it's important to have the families in the schools, and they have two parents working, or no father at
Working 2
home,
jobs.
or no
Or
father
three
at
jobs,
home,
right.
you know. But
Mike, you want me to tell
I'm
you?
just wondering, how do you do that?
Well,
I mean, you
everybody's
brought that
got
up as
I did.
a very good point, in my opinion. Yes, you do need parents in the school baking cookies, making sure the kid shows up on
Volunteering
time,
to work as
volunteering.
aides, you know,
And-
coming to PTA meetings, things like that. You do that. One of the things you do to promote that is you pass legislation that allows any working person some time off of work to attend a teacher conference.
And that's not going to happen. You know that.
No,
It's proposed all the time.
Right.
You know, and we're not talking about a whole lot of
Right.
time either.
Julie, this is my gist of it, and this didn't come from my wife. This came from me being a fly on the wall, watching the system. The system is flawed because we teach the kids nowadays to take a test, a standardized test. We don't teach when you know, I went to Zachary and they taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. I mean, it was, and I did pretty good with the arithmetic part. The other, you know, the reading and writing, I didn't do too good in. Karen tells me I didn't learn phonics all the time. But with that being said, I think what I see, and this is, again, what I see her bringing home every day, is we have missed what we should be doing. What we should be doing is teaching these kids how to read, how to write, and how to do math, you know, and the rest will follow. What we do now is we teach this standardized test in order for these kids to qualify in the 4th grade, the 8th grade, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's the 4th, 8th, and
They're changing high school to end of course tests, and you're not asking the most current person for that information now
Okay.
because I've been out of it for a while. But I think you're right in a large sense because the emphasis is teaching to these tests, and now they have tied teacher evaluation to these
the
tests
and
in a
you
very,
can-
very punitive fashion, that everybody's so stressed about those tests that we're forgetting to teach kids. Not forgetting, we don't have time because of what's been pushed down teachers' throats, not forgetting. Critical thinking skills, not only to read and write, but I remember
To
teachers
think.
saying, now you think,
Yeah, to think on your own.
does your answer make sense? Why or why not? You should be able to justify. You know, life is not a multiple choice test. It's not a bubble it in. A lot of times we have to be able to think on our feet. And a lot of the creative aspect of teaching, and there is a creative aspect, has been taken away by these tests.
Yeah, and you just answered my what I was trying to say. That's exactly right. because they are literally scared to death because of the grading system that the teacher gets. I mean, it's kind of like with anything. If you know, if you have a failing school, and what's making the school fail? You know, let's go in there. It's not the teachers. You know, this administration.
Not all the time.
But
Not
that's
all
what
the
this
time.
administration is saying.
Well,
Because you have a failing school, it's automatically the teachers that are
Look,
involved. That's
most
wrong,
of these
right?
labels are.
most of the teachers I had were real good.
Oh yeah.
And I did have some slugs. I mean, I had some slug teachers. Not all of them are.
And how did they stay in the classroom?
I'm wondering. But I did have a couple of
You know
teachers.
the answer to that question. How did they stay in the classroom?
Can't
Because
hear,
the
I don't
person,
know.
no, because somebody else didn't do their job.
Right. Well,
It
that's
takes-
true.
it
But
takes
I
time
did.
to earn
Now,
that.
I didn't have many. I can think of two
I was
teachers.
fixing to say you can most probably count them on two fingers.
I can think of two teachers that I know, I mean, they had either, and most of those teachers were well beyond 60 years old.
Well, and Mike, let's let truth be known. I'm sure you wasn't the
No, I wasn't.
ideal
Model
student.
student.
Yeah.
I wasn't the star pupil bringing the apple to
No,
the
but
teacher.
like
No.
any other profession, there's gonna be good ones, there's gonna be better ones, there's gonna be awesome
Well,
ones,
I
there's gonna be
understand
some
that.
who shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
But my thing
Okay.
is, and this is my gripe with the whole with this administration. Every school that has a problem, then it's automatically the teacher's fault. You
Right,
know?
it doesn't count that what the kid brings to school, whether they have any support, you know, what kind of environment the teacher is working in, of course it's all the teacher's fault,
And you know,
right.
we talked earlier about with different things, and Mike and I had a show the other day, and we were talking about what separates the unions apart from the other non-union people. What people don't realize is, and it's the same thing. I watched my wife. She started off with $16,400 a year. She had the opportunity to go to work in the private sector, double that.
I'm gone.
Double that.
I'm gone.
Well, you know what? That's why you're not a teacher, because I've watched her. You have to love your job, you know, in order to be a teacher. And I'm telling you, I've watched her over the years.
I could learn to love the other
She
job.
still has a passion. She still has that passion. And now, when we're showing our age a little bit, but now to be in a store or a restaurant or something, and they
Miss
have
Miller, Miss
oh
Miller.
my, and they got a baby.
Yeah.
You know, and she's looking at me, you know, I'm getting so old, but it does. It makes her. I can see how giddy she still is after teaching all this time.
That's what my kids do
And
today,
you know, so I mean, it's her babies. You know, I mean that's what she calls them. They're her babies. She made that comment this weekend. You know, my baby's got this play and all this. You know, or it was the last basketball game. But I mean, they're her kids, and she gets a thrill out of it. And I think that's a profession that you really do have to have a love for.
Now, real quick, we talked about the working parents, two working parents in a house, and that's very common, as we all know.
Very.
Now,
Common or
you
uncommon?
brought up, Julie, that maybe they should have time off from work that's
Parent
legitimate for parent teachers or something like that. So many, I'm sure, you know, somewhere along that. What do you do with the parents that has one parent and that parent's in the grips of drug addiction or alcohol or something like that, and this is a major problem in East Baton Rouge Parish. There's no doubt about it. 70805.
No, I think it's gonna take a lot of different solutions. You know, the saying that it takes a village to raise a child.
And I believe
We
that.
need, in high-risk areas, we need extended care for these kids. They need before and after school programs that are centered at the schools. In the case of, now, I'm gonna really show my labor and, if you wanna term it that way, leftist background. The young mothers who don't even have the GED and stuff like
Right.
that, they need to have a GED program at their kids' elementary school. or at the daycares. They need, if we're going to, welfare is not supposed to keep somebody on welfare forever.
Well, there's a
You're
5-year
supposed to
limit,
give
right?
somebody, I think it's 2 years.
2 years.
But that's not the perception most of the
No,
general public
it's
has
not.
anymore. They don't
It's
realize
not.
that.
It's not.
Everything's about those welfare people. You know what? They're not out there like you think they are. But I think that if somebody's receiving some kind of assistance, we should be putting them to some kind of public service, or we should be providing, you know, if I'm gonna give you this check and we're gonna provide childcare at the tech school for your child while you are working on getting licensed for something, and it's gonna be, because we train childcare providers there too. You know, why do we not multi-purpose some of our state facilities to better serve, to better achieve our purpose? We don't want people to stay on assistance. We want people to lift themselves
Where do people
up.
go when they get off of assistance if they don't go to work? What do you do? I mean, I don't know. I'm asking a question that I've got no idea on. The perception that I hear on the street is that they put them on disability Social Security. Do you know anything about that?
I think that there are some abuses in that program and in every assistance
Right.
program.
Well, there's
And
abuses
There's
in
abuses in
any
every
program.
program.
But
Right.
what I'm saying, if you've got, I thought it was a 5-year lifetime.
Well, I thought.
I think it's two
Uh,
now.
I thought it was 5 years, but if it's 2, it's 2. But what I'm saying is, after that 2 years, if a person hasn't taken
What are they
any
supposed to do,
assistance,
right?
what do you do?
They don't have any education or
No
training. They're
education, no
unemployed.
training. They're not. They have no marketable skills to speak of. Where do you put them?
So
What do you do with them?
back
They
to
got
my,
kids.
How are we spending? And
They got
don't-
kids.
And that's the person who suffers. I mean, they
Well,
suffer along with.
I don't think. I think they're not the only ones suffering from this. I think
There's
the
a
general
social
public.
cost, too. That's
Yeah.
right. There
I
is
mean,
a-
there's something going on. The kid's not going to Harvard. Okay.
Right.
The kid's probably going to Angola or a women's prison.
All too often.
And that's happening every day, right in the zip code our union
And
halls
we
in.
seem
So
like we'd rather spend money on those programs
don't see
than on
anything-
fixing the problem
Well,
on the front end.
I don't see any problem talking about this because our union hall is centered right in the middle
Well,
of 70805.
And let me tell you something, because I often want to shout out, and I guess I'm just as much to blame as anybody, but all these people that always talk about, you know, the problems with the welfare system, the problems in the 70805 area, there are a lot of things that the church community are getting
It's
involved.
amazing so many of them do as well as they do.
Yes,
I agree.
And you've got the
I agree.
I'll never forget the 100-man march or that they do. You've got the Big Brother program. How many people don't participate? You don't have to be a certain race to participate in this Big Brother program. So, I mean, I blame myself for not volunteering for that because I
And we
think I
have
could be a
agencies like CASA,
mentor.
the court appointed
Yeah.
special advocates for children. Some of us who can.
Some of these kids want out. They
Oh,
really
yeah.
do.
A lot of those kids want out.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
They just need
But when
somebody
you
to
see,
guide them the right way. Mike, when you see,
well,
as a kid,
when the guy on the corner's driving a fancy car and he's selling
That's it.
drugs, what
That's
other
attractive.
options do you
it's
have?
not
You're not going to go to McDonald's for the student minimum wage.
but again, what you also have to realize is that's the easy way out because I can promise you, whether they have
No one's there to
if they
tell them
have
that's the easy
if they
way
have
out.
2 parents in the house or they only have 1 parent in the house, I can promise you those parents are saying that's not the way I want you to do
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And so
Nobody wakes up one day and says, I'm going to raise my
Yeah.
kid to be a drug dealer.
And so, I mean, they are pushing them to do it in a different way. Mike, there's exceptions to everything.
Well, there's
Come
a-
on, there's
there-
those
believe
2
me.
teachers that were bad with you were exceptions to the rule.
Believe me, we got to leave here, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Julie Cherry, Secretary Treasurer of the Louisiana AFL-CIO, thank you for coming in. And we hope to have you co-hosted sometimes.
Very glad
Maybe
to be
you
here.
and Neil. That would be nice. But anyway, this is Baton Rouge Labor Radio, and if you work for free, You'll always have a job. Live better, work union, and we'll be back.